the delegates that are streaming in, and we'll of course also give you the update as far as the program is concerned as we continue with the show. But just to our discussion, still highlighting Kenya at 60, looking back from where we began with the sessional paper 10 of 1965. We're looking at some of the hits and misses so far. And before we took a short break, we were to hear from Professor Gitile Naituli. I hope you've not lost your track of thought. Yes.
No, I've not. Just, hit and misses. I want to go to the miss.
To the miss.
Where we missed.
But we should not just navel gaze on the misses. There are hits as well.
Exactly.
Yes,
I mean, the hits are many. Like I said, we are doing well. We have regular elections. We have not generated refugees. In other ones, there is a modicum of peace we have been able to maintain. We have also been a 60-year learning experience. Mm-hmm. If we didn't have self-rule, we didn't have the opportunity to make the mistakes that we have made. So there is incredible benefits we can enroll from the 60 years. But if you listen to Gito Wakaengeri last night, last night, he put a finger on where, with Jeff Koinange, he put a finger on where we went wrong. He said at independent, instead of the freedom fighters. And I want to say, by definition, freedom fighters means people who are sufficient love for the country and for the Kenyans. Now I want to tell you something. We say where I come from to just demonstrate it, because Kenyans are very good at saying, I love this Linda, so I love my president. We are cautioned where I come from that if you want a long-lasting marriage, never love the woman you love. You love the one who loves you. That will last. So now, but not the one who you love will go away at some point. Okay? So what the Kayangari is saying is that the freedom fighters did not get the power. They did not get the opportunity to now do what they wanted, what took them to war with the British. In the traitors, the Omungans are the ones who assumed power in government at the time of independence. And even the divisions the professor here was talking about, ideological divisions, they were actually still between the freedom fighters and the Omungans, still. And then I'm just brought now to the last election, this one. I think for the first time actually, since 1963, there was a ticket of people who have fought for good governance and those who have not. And the Kenyans choose those who So the confusion, the hate and miss. We missed in 1963, and we also missed again in the last election, deliberately. We made the miss. Now, why I use that mirror analogy, because usually it's the boys we device, is that if the leader doesn't have the capacity to love the people you are leading, that the leader will self-aggrandize. You're being driven by self-aggrandizement. And you see again what we say where I come from is poverty is never in your pocket. It's actually in your hand. So you're not satisfied. That kind of a leader. Now the unfortunate thing is these are the kind of leaders we have generated. From that time we have been generating these leaders one after another with a brief interlude. And I want to say this because at one time we need to declare Mwai Kibaki a national hero. You can see that he never even allowed his family to engage into business when he was the president. You can see the way, it's just that he didn't have time, if you ask me. Had he taken, let's say, 1978 or whatever, we could be having a different country. So, our miss is first, we became robotic. And that's what shallow leaders do. They transform good people into robots. So we mouth how we love them, even when they are not working for us, when they are working for themselves. So the mistake Kayangeri discussed on Jeff Koinange, it is the struggle even today we are undergoing. I mean, the country is going through. We are not able to transit from that. Those who manage, because I can tell you there are 3 countries in East Africa with this problem: Kenya, Uganda, and Burundi. Tanzania and Rwanda are doing well. Because the country usually, we love democracy, but you can actually do with a dictator who has no pocket. In other words, a dictator who is not greedy, who's doing it for you. Like Chairman Mao. Chairman Mao moved to China and declared that leap forward. I think he grounded quite a few people because he said himself that those who will not agree with our program will kill them for their own good. I'm not saying that was nice, but without Chairman Mao and there is a leap forward, I'm not sure China will be a superpower today.
Thank you.
So the greed we have created, and it has become a culture. If it is not arrested, it will collapse us because we can't progress further. To progress further, we must get selfless leaders. We must generate the Nyereres.
Let me come to Professor Aseka,
Yeah, sure.
because I think we've heard also Prof here saying that corruption is a religion in this country. It's turned out to be a religion in this country.
It's a national religion.
It's a national religion, corruption.
Yeah,
And it seems that is a congenital problem that we've had also from 1963 since we gained independence.
Yes.
The government now, through the head of public service, has come up with a multi-sectoral agency to fight corruption. And we were asking, it's laughing, but it's true.
Yeah.
We have asked, now there is a multi-agency corruption, fighting corruption, sectoral, intersectoral, should I say, agency. We still have...
What is new with that?
Look,
because we cannot slay and stanch the flow of corruption in this country.
And
we need to ask some of these institutions what they're doing so far, like the National Steering Anti-Corruption Committee, which we hear nothing of it.
Is that what you want him to address?
Let him address that. Then we talk about, because even you've been talking about tumbocracy.
Yeah, there's also I wanted to pick up where my colleague left, because you look at China and Mao with this cultural revolution. Really, he created a basis of growing China's cultural capital for purposes of undergirding institutional operations. And in our country here, Kenya, there was a mechanical way of going about issues of development and management of the economy. You go back to Tanzania. Nyerere was given the prime ministership of Tanzania, and he realized he did not have something tangible to offer Tanzanians. So what did he do? He withdrew and left leadership to Rashid Kawawa, and he went to do some serious philosophical reflection. And that's how he came up with his idea of African socialism based on the concept of self-reliance, right? And therefore he began now to define institutions which will be entrusted with leadership mandates of a type. Here in our country, what we do, we ignore this, and that has left a serious problem of ideological and philosophical poverty in Kenya, right? Whereby we stand accused by Frantz Fanon in his Pitfalls of National Consciousness, that there was no creation of a national culture. And this sends us back to the whole question then, right? What do we need in order to address these pitfalls identified by Frantz Fanon? We need serious reflection on our history, on where we are in relation to where we want to go, and come up with a blueprint that is realistic and not a camouflaged, obscurantist framework saying, oh, we want to be this, yet you are hiding some realities that you want to allow survive, but rather engage in serious forms of statecraft, statehood, creation of leaders that will perpetuate that agenda forward. And so we see a country that lacks commitment to transformation. And the question that arises is, what is the role of a scholar in national and social transformation? We need to create epistemic communities that can confront these ridiculous practices in the political arena and call everyone to answer.
But Prof, when the rubber hits the road, because when we come to these elections, they'll say all these ideologies and philosophical tenets that you're talking about are not really practical on the ground. What Mwananchi wants to hear.
I wanted to take a contrarian view in this manner on his point. You see, in the end, we must assess the theory and the philosophy on what it means to people's lives practically. I disagree with both the examples of Nyerere's Tanzania and Mao's China. I mean, Nyerere's Tanzania is actually a very poor country, as is China's, as Mao's China. I mean, millions of people died. It's not until Deng Xiaoping, who succeeds Mao, who says, we're not going to follow that dogma and ideology like that. In fact, Deng says like this: I don't care the color of the cat, so don't tell me the cat is black or white or whatever, or gray.
As long as the cat
if it eats mice, it is a good cat. So, now if you go back to what Kenyatta is saying in the sessional paper,
absolutely.
Now, Kenyatta says, look, let's stop these theories, let's stop debate. Frankly, I disagree with him there, because the alternative, I mean, you see, stopping debate meant an autocratic state. And unfortunately, we didn't do very well ourselves as a nation with that autocratic state. It became more and more repressive as time went by. Now, if you fast forward to Kibaki time, there was debate amongst us. Kinagituro here, and people, IMF, IFC, I don't know what, Kenyan intellectuals.
I was on the other side.
He was in World Bank. and IMF was arguing, you Kenyans, you're trying to democratize and to modernize the economy both at the same time. It has never been done before in the world. Even China has chosen, let's grow the economy. These issues you are talking of democracy, tutaongea kesho. Let's grow the economy, which is a bit where Professor was going. As we chose to do both at the same time. Now look, it is national choice, depending on what you believe are your issues. I believe myself, as I summarize, we have actually done well in democratizing and transforming the economy, particularly during Kibaki era.
Exactly.
Because in Kibaki time, again I want to repeat, this whole thing is about incomes. It's about standard of living. It doesn't matter the theory. In Kibaki time, real incomes went up 4 times. So what you can buy, I mean, you could feel you could experience your standard of living improving. What has happened since is that real incomes have basically stagnated. It made Kenyans believe, okay, it was couched in dynasty versus hustler, or in the words of Professor here, Naitule, those who fought for second liberation and those who didn't. In the end, the hustlers took power. However, they took power with, in a sense, a negative blueprint that is not going to, and you can already see the blowback, it has no possibility of continuing the transformation. So if you ask me to summarize 60 years, I would say some hits and misses, just as the headline is saying. In the 60s, you see a spurt of growth where people really lives are improving. A bit in the 70s, you also see as part of growth. Then, as has been said already on the program, we go through a 24-year period of a lot of contraction in terms of the welfare and the standard of living of people. Then we go through
a 10-year expansion.
A 10-year fantastic experience, democratizing, improving people's incomes. We go to a point where, again, we stagnate. And unfortunately, what is available now does not give any confidence that we are going to go into another trajectory.
Yeah.
So yes, hits and misses. If you go into the detail, you can say, for example, education. I mean, I think one has to agree we have expanded education tremendously. In my time, which was a few years after Gituro, you know, the people in Form 6 could fit in one page of your newspaper.
Yeah, exactly.
We were all
One
listed.
page.
Yeah.
Because only about less than 1,000 were going to university.
Yeah.
Today, 200,000 maybe. If you combine both public and private universities, are going whatever. Today, we have most constituencies, electoral constituencies, having a technical college, which we call TVET. So the basis on which we could take off is available. The one bit I perhaps would agree with Prof here about national values.
Right, before we even latch to the national values, because I wanted just to latch on and hover a bit on the issue of socialism. And Prof, we pick up on Nyerere, but aside from tribalism that we see, he really streamlined Tanzania to what it is right now, with over 100 tribes that we cannot see one topping over the other, or even we will be readily shy to even list some of these tribes, because here we do not really know them.
I'm looking to Gituro to assist. To assist you, because it's a difficult question, but I'll try.
So the question of socialism in Tanzania also was woefully inadequate in terms of making sure there is a transformative, change in Tanzania, aside from tribalism. So would you that example of Nyerere and Tanzania, do you think is an adequate example also to make comparison with where we were beginning with it? Yeah, inadequate. It's woefully inadequate.
Let me tell you, Tanzania as a nation was brought together in terms of the interventions of Nyerere to demystify religion, to demystify everything else, and create a nation that has a sense of national identity and sense of pride, national pride.
Yeah.
And for that...
But for the economy, it
no,
never works.
listen, the economy, of course, that nationalization which he embarked upon was confronted with very serious sabotage by the IMF and World Bank and these institutions. So he was not left
sabotage.
Oh, yes.
But you see, look, these are professors. We cannot say one thing in the lecture hall and say another differently. In business school, with you guys, we tell our students, you manage the circumstance you find. Because you will never go and find a perfect set of circumstances out there. And that's why we talk. We want managers who are adaptive, who are able to.
So let me hear from you too.
If you look at the most African countries, even look at Nyerere, they all were talking about African socialism.
Yes.
And I think that was a buzzword. Whether you go to Nkrumah, Kenyatta, or them, the next level was how do we achieve that? That's why they differed. Because Nyerere looked at it from self-reliance. He went to Ujamaa. This approach. We approach the capitalism. And what Nyerere did is step back. Before I take off, and that's what Tanzania is doing today. Before I take off, I need to create people.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first vision for Botswana, 7 points, and they all say creating a nation, creating a nation, creating a nation. After you have created the nation, they now say we now want to go to the economy. And I recall going to their 2016 and now drafting their vision 2060. If you look at our vision, even at 208, we started, initially it started with the 3 pillars, and then it had the transformative, but it had nothing about the national values. So we had to come back and bring the national values. So what Nyerere did is he started with the values. It has a foundation.
Yes.
Let's now have a takeoff.
Yeah.
I think we mixed the two as we moved on. And I think that because each one of them believed in socialism, African socialism. But what is fundamental, and I was trying to go there, this thing is actually, if I was to run for any political position, and my age doesn't allow, I would really look for number...
Oh, you're very young for African politics.
Yeah. I look at the number, you think of the guy in Nigeria now. He's almost collapsing when he's swearing. Number 59, how we use the domestic resources. The session of paper. Very clear. A shilling, and Iraqi made it very clear, a shilling with the private sector will bring more than a shilling in government.
Correct.
Put it to that private sector. Number 70 of this, paragraph 70, you read actually, read paragraph 70 of the session of paper and 59. It provides us what we need to. It talks about investing. And that's what African socialism, in my view, should have said. How do we make this sharing get to the private sector there? There was a very interesting article of a guy being interviewed by BBC. He's actually the second richest person in Africa, in Nigeria. And this guy flew all the way from London to Lagos to interview. And he said one thing, private sector is the driver. But as you do that private sector, you have a responsibility of social capital. You must develop the people with you. And that's what Nyerere was saying. Self-reliance, I must-read book when we were in university first year. Education for self-reliance. And then now, and that's what those guys, if you look back from Magafuli, perhaps the recent, if you look at the ready now, that's what they are reaping the benefits from. That's how I look at it. Very clear. This is one we want to go. And then Mzee Kenyatta was very clear. We must address the issue of food. We all must address health. We all must address poverty. What are we lecturing today? Issues of poverty. So to me, any politician, it's a respect when you say Mokoro. They need maybe to do politics 101 by reading session of paper number 1, number 10. Whether they implement is a different ballgame, but they have added. You know the adage of the hyena.
You know why I'm arguing leadership is the key. I'm arguing leadership is the key.
I think you have to finish.
Just 1 second. I want to continue. I'm arguing this because Kenyans don't even remember that Kibaki governed us with the old constitution. And you could easily imagine he was governing us under the 2013 constitution.
He actually, when he was leaving, the 2013 came in.
So had it been this constitution, things would have been substantially different.
Even better. Because if you could govern us the way he did with the old one. So imagine if he was using this document.
Professor Seka.
A good observation. Now, we are talking of misses. And my colleague, Professor, has identified very serious issues, which I want to point to, that we still have the same problems that we sought to confront in 1963, simply because we have not transformed the structural outlook of our economy. And I state this as a political historian. I know I have economists now. That's why I'm just provoking them to make interventions. Number one, the first challenge of the Kenyan economy, as is the case with many African economies, is it has a narrow productive base. Number two, it has a distorted class structure. Number three, it has undeveloped and unbalanced markets. And number four, it has a working force that is not perfectly mobile. So long as those problems remain, the problems and issues we are talking about will persist. But if we target to carry out a structural transformation that targets those particular ends, there will be a revolution, a change in our fortunes, so to say.
And so when you talk about a labor force that is not mobile, you're talking upward mobility.
No, I mean too reliant on trade unions to bargain for them.
He is also talking.
I'm not sure what Professor look. Labor markets.
I think it's Getile that we come to.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to imagine Professor is talking also about the labor force.
Yes.
Yeah, the labor force.
Labor force is the
Yes.
acquisition of skills. Yeah.
Yes.
So we have a down. What is it called now? If you have a triangle, we have a down bottom that is not acquiring any skills, and therefore the productivity is at the subsistence level, the survival level.
Yeah.
So there is no movement upwards. For instance, even the Asola's idea of the Asola fund, I would have imagined you would have structured it to answer his question by transiting a micro enterprise, 0 to 4 employees, to a small scale enterprise, 5 to 9, and then to a medium enterprise, 9 to 19. So that you are now moving, the labor force is moving both the skill and the productivity.
Yeah.
And the expansion of the labor market, the labor market itself, employment level. So when indeed do that, when the fund came and it wasn't intended in that direction, I just wondered which economists are working with the president. Because what we got now is a felicia. In the sense of a very well thought it through,
one of them.
transformational. Oh, it's not. Derito is arguing so well. Actually, I've not been in this panel with a proper thinker.
Yes.
Yes, and I think this is what we need at the national level, more or
Yes,
less.
yeah.
So when you look at that, then you wonder who is advising these people. Then again, when you go back and they see also the kind of policy statement coming out, which does not actually factor in the private sector, because only the private sector can deliver the goods you want at that price you're asking. The state, at least as we know it, yes,
Absolutely.
Yes.
so when you again see his statement, policy statement, which write off the private sector, then again you ask yourself, have we overwritten our economists? Because it's very handy to see where this is going, and it's, I'm not going into those in details. So I can understand what you are saying from that perspective.
All right. There's a big issue, and I wanted just to broach maybe the population. That right now, as we stand, we are at 54, right? Going to 56, going up. And we always pride ourselves that almost 70% of the population is a youthful part. The question of the quality of population and the question of the quality of the population also needs to be addressed. Because within the 54, what is the quality of the population? And when you're looking at the quality of population, you're looking at the indices of, at the labor force itself, that you can be having all these youthful faces, but also what quality of education have they been able to access good quality education, so that we know, as much as we are priding ourselves, we have that particular capital of the youth, also they are of a quality that can be absorbed in the labor market.
In the upshoot of this session of paper number 10, or one of it, was in fact family planning, a very sort of fairly intensive family planning program, creating ultimately the National Council for Population and Development, which you hardly hear of now. Now, this was a state organization intended to help us as citizens to reflect on the size of family we wanted to have and to be able to plan. Because the methods to plan, are available, and it's to encourage citizens to take choice. Obviously, any parent wants their children to have perhaps a better life than themselves. So it is likely that people will choose to have smaller family sizes in order to provide for them more adequately. So, but I think we must try and bring it all together, that institutions already established fade, and they fade perhaps because of their relationship with the national executive. So in crafting this Constitution of Kenya 2010, one of the principal ideas in it was to lessen the suffocating effect of the presidency. Because the presidency seems to be able, as an institution, it's able to suck the oxygen out of every room to the detriment of other institutions. So the whole idea of this Katiba was, look, first of all, power belongs to we, the Kenyans. We only donate a little of it to the president, a little of it to the judges, and a little of it to parliaments. But it is our power. We should reflect very carefully on the meaning of that vis-a-vis Madaraka day to day. You as a citizen of Kenya, yes, Madaraka means you have choice. But one hopes you exercise the choice positively for your own good. You know, you must have seen something going on social media about this guy. He you know, when he died, was a rich man. When the day he died and went up, you could make a choice whether to go to heaven or hell. So he decided to test, and he was put in a lift. When he got on the hell side, he found the devil, his friends, and was looking very nice. Then he went to the heaven side, and he saw it was a bit somber, you know, nice music, whatever. So he said, I want to go to that side which looks more fun. Then when he went there, it looked different. And he said, hey, what's going on? You, Mr. Devil. The devil said to him, look, my friend, yesterday when you came, we were campaigning. So,
for him to go there.
For him, exactly. So you, the citizen.
Now this is the reality.
This is the reality.
Yeah.
You, the citizen. So Madaraka is not just being free from colonial rule. It is freedom for you to make choice. And that freedom is then protected by this constitution. And the reason you have an independent judiciary, for example, is so that they can help you, and I and all the other Kenyans, to protect those rights. But we must exercise them in accordance with it, but also really reflecting on what we want. Because the truth be told, individuals generally, politicians included, tend to act in self-interest. And what we have in Kenya is many, many politicians and very few leaders. And I tell you, politics and leadership is not the same.
Yeah.
The leader requires politics, but not every politician is a leader. So, as we reflect on today, 60 years of independence, 60 years of Madaraka, it's about what we are doing. And so, I want to conclude. Sorry, it's taking time.
Today we
conclude like this. Madam Citizen, Mr. Citizen, power belongs to you. Article 1, and the professor here will tell you, power belongs to you. If me, who you have elected, is exercising the power wrongly or to your detriment, you can at any time exercise your power directly.
And recall. All right.
I want them to give Aeroplane with a definition of a politician and a leader.
In fact, that's where I was coming. So going through the stream of history that we've heard from Jomo Kenyatta, have we just been having politicians on that particular seat, or we've ever had a leader?
Exactly. We had politicians through and through, except Mwai Kibaki. Mwai Kibaki was a leader. Now a leader, a politician is always about the next election. A leader is about the next generation. And that's where the difference lies. So when you look at the Kibaki, you can see the vision 2030. That was not tied to his election. It transcended his election. He was looking at a generational growth and building knowledge and building the country towards the future. So a politician purely will be preoccupied with acquiring power, then retaining it, and that means the signpost is the next election and nothing beyond that, beyond the next election. A politician is not a nation or a state in Berunda. And this is what, now that is our being, our weakness. We have produced politicians year after year, election after election. We have not been able to produce leaders. Now the question is, Why so? When we do that, because Governor Ruto, he mentioned something about us as our people, and something about the economics. And what we say about a rational person in economics is that you should always make choices which add the value to you, and minimize punishment. Okay? But we seem consistently to make choices when we are faced with the choice to make that increases punishment on our side. Now you wonder then, are we rational? So, you know, in political science, there is something they call collective consciousness, which governs a polity. And they say that our leader, our people, they get the leaders they deserve. In other words, if the collective consciousness is low, you get the leaders with the low collective, with the low consciousness, because it's dictated by the collective consciousness. So it would appear that immediately our consciousness at independence was very high, collective consciousness as a people, because we produced selfless people like Indanda Gimathi, people who gave the ultimate for the country. So we produced people like Jaramogi, who was willing, who was asked to take power, and then he says, I can't, until the freedom fighters are released, including Kenyatta. Jaramogi would have taken power, then released Kenyatta and sent him to Isawari. And in my opinion, I think the country would have been better off, because his Hutu was higher. You know, there is human content in our leader. When you look at the Jaramogi's action, because you know, who do we classify as a hero? Somebody who does something that is so ordinary, anyone could have done it, but nobody else did it. Okay? So when you look at the human content of Jaramogi, was much higher than Uhuru Kenyatta. The collective consciousness did not allow us, I believe, to have that. In 2002, it allowed us, it had risen to a certain level until we had Kibaki. So there is something to think about what it is that we can work against self-interest.
All right. But has the place of academia failed?
Let me summarize in what he's saying in a business person.
Okay.
By Peter G. Obi. He's a Nigerian businessman and politician. No country can progress if its politics is more profitable than its industries.
Exactly.
In a country where those in government are richer than entrepreneurs, they manufacture poverty.
They manufacture poverty.
Well, that's a good one.
That's it. And this guy was a politician, a governor, and now he's a businessman.
Yes.
So where a country will never progress, where politics, look at it.
Maybe became a philosopher after now, turning into private sector.
Look how beautiful this is.
This is the point. People go to this country, and that's why we lose the leadership.
Yes.
Because it's more profitable in being
a politician
than industry.
Being a leader.
That's it.
And when they're in politics, they change completely.
And when I'm in politics, how many do I apply? Nobody. When I'm in an industry, millions of people. But I thought the question you had asked about the skills. Are we still there? Or?
Yeah, that's where you're hoping.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fair enough. So I wanted to summarize, Profs, the bottom line.
Fantastic.
We are not moving as a country when you have more
politicians.
I wanted to just hear from also Professor Seka, still on leadership, because, and I was asking, what has been the place of academia in making sure that we have more of leaders than politicians? Do we have a curriculum that prepare our leaders?
No, there's a point I was trying to make, and Prof will come in. You see, the biggest challenge we have, and we have to be, they say the king is naked. If you look at the academia today, you look at the instructors, if you wish, the professors, the lecturers, and you look at the ones they are actually training, the gap is too big. These guys are still thinking they are BBC.
Analog.
Born before computers.
Oh, born before, okay. Yeah, analog.
They are, and I'm one of them, my brother. And what you...
Prof, you need to defend yourself on this. Are you the BBC side of things?
And you look at this perspective, and I think there are three things we have to put in motion. Bottom line, what are the skills requirement in the next 10 years? What are the requirements down the road in the world and in this country? And it's from that perspective we step back and look at our curriculum. I like the point he was raising. Am I there lecturing and telling, outside there, these are the things which matter. This is how you're going to do it. Do I bring people like the Reed Jenga Karume to my classroom of business and tells you, what did it take me to a Machako Bana to what I was? Am I bring somebody? Where are most African rich people? When they die, the business dies with them. We have the Tuskies, right? We have the Malays, yes?
Even neighbors, is in grace of God, they almost went that direction, but I think they got a very good counsel.
Yes.
So they stopped.
So there's a gap there of the knowledge imparted, the people with the knowledge, the kids what they are looking for. There's this report by Aga Khan, which came out the other day, interesting, and they're saying 40% of the time they are on the social media. So when I'm in a classroom, what kind of people am I dealing with? Not losing sight the kind of opportunities which exist down the road.
You have allowed him to box you. When he asks you that question,
right?
The leaders are not just created in the classroom, they are created by society, because most of these young people learn by observation. So when there is no culture, when there is no global integrity,
yes,
then the classroom becomes...
In addition,
let me hear from Prof. It was Prof. Then we give now the closing remarks. So
that we can respond to it. In addition, you see, if you adopt something, you better adopt
globally.
The whole system. The way we are doing politics, for example, we have adopted competitive politics, or meaning multi-party and so on.
Yep.
But we have paid scant attention to what a political party is. Now, in the places where the system we have chosen is working, because a lot of effort goes into political parties, including something that might prove very unpopular here. In the UK, for example, that we follow often, the way candidates are picked or arrived at in political parties is not by people voting for them, is by the party selecting people who believe in the things and values and ideology of that party.
Thank you.
I rest my case.
Prof.
Exactly.
As we wind up as well, as we prepare our headline thoughts.
I like the dichotomy that was provided by Prof here. And I wanted to add to it that dichotomy should make us be able to identify the existence of political demagogues who are the majority and they're driven by populism. And we have, of course, statesmen who have a sense of altruism. And so what we lack in our country is a mechanism of creating statesmen so that we have leaders who see themselves as strategic national resources, who do put a high premium on leadership to the extent that they will drive this country towards good democratic governance, and that they embrace principles of democratic governance, whereby those principles are reflected even in the way they operate. I think we have a deficit of such in this country, and that is why we have public discourse dominated by people who are populists, and we are not driven by a sense of values which characterize our positions and what we do in the public arena.
Right, thank you. Let's get our headline thoughts from Ndiritu Muriithi briefly. 30 seconds. Today, of course, we not have a lot of time, 2 hours.
Yeah, you know, Madaraka is about our independence as a nation, and I think it's an excellent day to reflect. As I said, we must exercise the choice, and we must remember that Msema kweli yako hapa, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, power belongs to us as citizens. If those who we have donated to don't exercise that power to our liking, we should take it back.
Thank you. Gituro Wadena, Professor?
Yeah, just there's an interesting talking about the economy. It's called Kabaria Ole Muturi Nyeri. And I think as we look at
your headline thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes.
It says the bill is good. The bill seeks to address a cocktail of urgent issues. Top of them, dependence on offshore and domestic borrowing for our limping economy. Then he says, you go through the paces of the revenue from the denial of some prototype Disneyland where substance is not guaranteed, but how big or small the size